Field by field, Maizex is bringing Canadian seed to farmers across Canada. Maizex is your source for high-performance soybeans and grain, silage, and grazing corn hybrids. Visit maizex.com to find your local Maizex representative.
I'm Shaun Haney, and this is RealAg on the Weekend. Let's get real and get connected with the week that was in Canadian agriculture. RealAg on the Weekend starts now. Welcome to RealAg on the Weekend here on 650 CKOM and 980 CJME. I'm your host, Shaun Haney of RealAgriculture.com. It is great to be with you here on the program. We got a lot to cover today. There's a lot happening in agriculture. There's no doubt about it. We got combines rolling through the fields, and we're going to get some commentary on that here in a second. We've also had a up and down week when it comes to this rail strike with CPKC and CN Rail. We'll talk about that a little bit here as well. So lots to talk about, lots to discover, and we'll break it all down as much as we possibly can for you. Today on the program, we are going to hear from Nathan Phinney. He is the president of the Canadian Cattle Association. I was in Saskatoon this week, had a great time at the Canadian Beef Industry Conference. This is the national convention of the beef industry, all coming together in one place. Great turnout, great trade show, awesome lineup of speakers. And if you listen to the RealAg Radio podcast, you heard on Thursday we did the show from the stage, and Nathan Phinney was one of our guests. We also had Eric Bienview, who is the president of Canada Beef, right? And so we talked a lot about the collaboration between the two organizations. I learned a lot, to be honest with you. What does Canada Beef do? What does the Canadian Cattle Association do? And how do they work together? And where are their lanes? And we used examples of some big problems in the past, like front of package labeling. Remember when the Canadian government was considering putting warning labels on the front of packages of ground beef and pork, almost like as if ground beef that you were going to put, mix in with your spaghetti, or you were going to make some hamburger patties out of. That ground beef was going to have a warning label as if it was like a cigarette package. I still scratch my head at who came up with that one. Well, they backed off. The government found an exit ramp. And what was happening was, CCA had their role in the advocacy part of it, but Canada Beef had a role from the standpoint of consumer research. And what do consumers think about the ground beef, and how do they prepare it, and some of the nutritional data points for Health Canada to consider. So that's just an example. So I encourage you to go to listen to Thursday's show of the RealAg Radio podcast. But I did a side session with Nathan Phinney, and we'll talk about that today on the show. And also the rail strike and how that impacts the beef industry, right? You don't think of the beef industry as being impacted by rail, but I'll tell you what, very concerned. We're also going to have today a product spotlight with Genesis Fertilizer. And then we're also going to have a Canola School episode with Ian Epp of the Canola Council of Canada. As those combines are rolling through the field, it's important to not take off your scouting hat, okay? So as you're out there swathing or combining, do not forget that's a great time to actually do some scouting as well. If you have any feedback on today's show, you can send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. You can also find us across all the different social media platforms as Real Agriculture. I was posted to the Real Agriculture Instagram account all week. It was fun. I'm having some fun with it. It's good times. You can also call the RealAg feedback line. That number is 855-776-6147. Okay, let's hear from Jocelyn Velestuk, who farms and ranches in the Broadview, Saskatchewan area. I had her on the RealAg Radio podcast on Wednesday, and she talked about some of their crop conditions as they were just about to begin harvest on Wednesday.
Well, we got a really exciting day today because we're just getting the combines all tuned up, and we're moving through the valley, north of the valley, to our oats up there. And it's looking pretty ripe, and hopefully it will be good to go this morning. We're still in the middle of our green feed. We do silage green feed bales and we wrap them. But we usually hit a point where we're ready to harvest and the rest has to go dry. So we've got a lot of that feed up for the winter, which is good. But it's definitely a busy kind of transition period for us with we're making feed and combining at the same time.
Yeah, and so this will be the first day of combining for the 24 season?
It will, yes.
Oh, that is exciting. That's
It is exciting, yeah.
What are the expectations yield-wise? Give us an update on how things are looking there in Broadview.
I'm having a really hard time predicting yield this year because everything came up looking really, really good. And, it was maybe a bit slow growing with the cool, wet June, and then we got hot, dry July. And so I guess my question is, well, what these varieties of the different crops do when we get that hot and dry, when they're really healthy to begin with. And we're probably over 8 inches this growing season of rain, which is very good. But where did that moisture go, I guess, and was it enough? And so I don't know how much, like sometimes when you're in flowering season and you have heat, you get those flowers aborting and not producing a seed or a fruit. And I'm just not sure. It looks good from the road, but we'll see when we get into it.
That was Jocelyn Velestuk of Broadview, Saskatchewan. And I think a lot of producers across the province are kind of in that same boat, right? And you got to be careful with what you don't do a yield forecast based on what you see on social media. But I'm definitely seeing a lot of growers a little bit disappointed with some of their yields, specifically in canola. And that has me concerned because we're in the early seeded canola crop at this point. If the early seeded stuff, which you would think the flowering missed that heat a little bit, or was, it was a little bit earlier than the heat. If this is where it's at, what's the back end stuff? But I don't want to get too negative, but definitely I'll say one thing for sure. Where we thought our yield expectations were at the end of June are not where they are today. Okay, we know that. So there's if you are into your fields, send me some notes and some data on how things are going. Are they not as bad as you thought? Worse than you thought? It's always great to hear from the audience. You can send me that email, shaney@realagriculture.com. What a week in the rail strike. Yikes. Now, at the time of recording this show, we've had the labor minister engage Section 107, which basically is trying to force them into binding arbitration. The union on Thursday night put out some very strong worded language when it came to, sorry, we don't believe you can do this. This is unconstitutional. And I'm paraphrasing. And we're going to continue picketing because we are talking to council, and there may be a legal challenge here. So as of right now, when we're recording this show, it looks like CN has ended the lockout and trains rolled as of Friday, or we're going to go back to work on Friday. CPKC looks like picketing is still going on, and they're seeking legal counsel. But this is a very fluid situation, so I encourage you to go check out RealAgriculture.com for the latest. This is not just impacting agriculture. It's not just impacting Saskatchewan. This is, the thing is, it's impacting every Canadian. This is like an issue. The railways are the economic underbelly of the country. And if you didn't know it, you're going to know it quickly. CN Rail said that if trains don't roll, there's going to be parts of the country that are under boil water advisories as of Monday. Like 24 to 48 hours from now, because chlorine for water treatment plants is hauled by rail. This is a dire situation for Canadians and our economy. It needs to be fixed. I don't care who's right, who's wrong. Fix it. Now. Quickly. Urgently. And believe me, the Americans are very concerned. I did a lot of American media spots this week. They are looking at us and saying, what the heck are you doing, Canada? Yeah, we are the land of labor impasses. We need some long-term solutions. Okay, let's take a break. And when we come back, we're going to talk to Nathan Phinney. He is president of the Canadian Cattle Association. He'll join us right after this.
This segment is brought to you by FP Genetics Hybrid Fall Rye, innovative seed genetics for Canadian farmers. Contact your local FP territory manager to discuss your fall seeding strategy and discover hybrid fall rye's flexible end uses for marketing, milling, distilling, ethanol, and feed. Visit hybridfallrye.ca today. Since 2010, the Wheat School on RealAgriculture.com has been helping farmers to grow great wheat. Covering everything from markets, the latest research, pest and disease control, all the way down to on-farm trials, the Wheat School has everything your crop needs. Check out our massive video library on YouTube and grow great wheat with the Wheat School, brought to you by Syngenta Canada, C&M Seeds, and Alberta Grains.
If you're involved in the agriculture industry, it's important to stay informed on all the latest issues affecting your business. At RealAgriculture.com, we offer fast, reliable news, information, and insights to help you keep on top of all of the latest in Canadian agriculture. Visit RealAgriculture.com and sign up for our free daily newsletter covering everything from news, agronomy, animal agriculture, and much more. Visit RealAgriculture.com/subscribe today.
Field by field, Maizex is bringing Canadian seed to farmers across Canada. Maizex is your source for high-performance soybeans and grain, silage, and grazing corn hybrids. Visit maizex.com to find your local Maizex representative.
And welcome back to Real Ag on the Weekend here on 980 CJME and 650 CKOM. I'm your host, Shaun Haney of RealAgriculture.com. And speaking of that labor impasse, the rail strike, the lockout portion has ended. But events are still unfolding, and we want to keep you up to date on everything that is happening. You can do that by going to realagriculture.com and subscribe to our e-newsletters, because that's in your inbox in the morning, and then you got it right there. You don't have to go Googling and searching for our website. You'll have it in your email inbox. It is free, and it has the stories in it that will keep you updated on everything you need to know to take on the day in the world of agriculture. Well, this week like I mentioned, I was in Saskatoon, and I was at the Canadian Beef Industry Conference, and I recorded this it would be Wednesday, and I chatted with the president of the Canadian Cattle Association. He's a rancher from New Brunswick. It is Nathan Phinney, and Nathan is I really enjoy talking to Nathan. Do it regularly, working hard for the benefit of cattle farmers and beef producers across this country. And we chatted about the trilateral meeting that happened between Canada, Mexico, and the U.S. at the meeting, as well as some of the impacts of a rail strike when it comes to the beef industry. Here it is. Trilateral meeting between Canada, Mexico, and the U.S. Integrated beef value chain, indeed. There was a lot of discussion about the importance of things like trade. You chaired the meeting. What were some of your takeaways or things that stuck out to you?
Yeah, this was trilateral meeting 3 this year. Each country hosts one, and just due to timing, this was our chance to host. And happy to see the turnout from the Mexican delegation as well as the U.S. One of the big things that we're constantly in discussion in right now, and we're all watching, is the U.S. election. That's going to be on top of mind until November, and see who gets put in place down there for power. And then obviously, one of the a little bit longer out topics that we're going to be discussing once we see how that turns out is the review of CUSMA in 2026.
Smart of you to invite the Mexican delegation during Canadian summer and not, when crop production shows going on here in Saskatoon in January. That's you're smart that way.
Yeah, Hamero thanked that we cranked the temperature up. It was a little warmer here. He said he felt just like at home from the weather and the hospitality, he said. So.
Cervezas all around. Okay, You mentioned the CUSMA renegotiation, or the USMCA as it's known in the U.S., and Mexico actually has their own name for it as well. There's no certainty at this point in terms of renegotiation or review, but that July 1st date, 2026, it is concerning for CCA. And there's prep work that goes in. It's not just like, oh, wait and see what happens. You're working on this now.
Yeah, I mean, it's unlike the NAFTA agreement, this isn't a total overhaul. This is a review phase. But what is a bit worrisome is by the time this lands, we will have three elections. The U.S. will have theirs. Mexico just recently had their election, and by fall of 2025, Canada is due to have their federal election. So, we'll essentially have new governments going into this. One concerning thing we're hearing south of the border is, the Republican Party and Trump were the ones that signed the agreement, but we've also heard the word tariffs being thrown out quite loosely, whether it be a 10% or 20%, but any percent is a scary number for us. And then, on the other side, the Harris campaign, the Democrats, we've heard about, basically wanting to start that over or tear that agreement up. So, we've got a lot of work to do. Our embassy is working effortlessly down there on our behalf, and we do have a good relationship with our counterparts, but it is key that we are building those relationships long before the day of the review happens.
Yeah, actually, you mentioned the embassy. Kent Backus from NCBA mentioned in that meeting that, don't worry, your embassy is doing the work. When there's an issue, we hear about it. I thought that was kind of encouraging.
Yeah, it was, and I mean it comes as even more of a compliment coming from a man like Ken Backus, who is a great friend and ally. And yeah, we are trading competitors, but we are all friends. And when we look at the North American live cattle market being the largest integrated cattle market in the world, trade is essential. So we have everything to gain by this going the way we hope it goes, smoothly transitioning, but we also have everything to lose if this goes sideways.
Good points. Okay, like I said, we're having this conversation on Wednesday afternoon. It is August 21st, August 22nd tomorrow. Thursday will be potentially a rail strike. A lot of people probably wouldn't think about beef being reliant on rail. How concerned is CCA about the impacts of this strike?
Yeah, we're very concerned, and I think back in the last 4 years, whether it be a pandemic or lockouts or strikes or natural disaster, we have a fairly robust and resilient value chain. But the minute there is any sort of disruption, something like critical usage of rail in this country that's from coast to coast. I mean, we're the second in landmass, biggest country in the world, and we rely on rail to move our commodity products, whether it be input products or finishing products. So when we're really looking at a food security component to this, to being able to ensure that products, goods, and services are delivered, the other aspect of this is Canada. We are glad and boast that we are a net exporter of goods, but it really becomes an issue of our trading partners looking at us and saying, you have the product, but do you have the ability to deliver? Mm-hmm. And, it's concerning for trade-minded commodity groups such as, beef industry in Canada. Yeah. As important and as big a trading partner as Canada and U.S. together, we also have diversified and have other trading markets. But if we have if port strike in Vancouver or rail strikes in Canada prevent us from being able to get product out of this country, when you're dealing with a perishable product such as beef, you only have one option to go, and that's south. And I think that is starting to be a concern to the American producers and the American folks, that there's only one way to go with this. So I think, their government, our government need to get together, and we really need, we completely support the collective bargaining agreement and the importance of unions, but at the same token, we need to ensure that these essential services don't continue to hinder growth and movement of critical mass.
We'll be back with more of RealAg on the weekend here on 650 CKOM and 980 CJME. RealAg Radio is Canada's only daily radio show focused on agriculture. Get expert advice on Agronomic Monday. Tuesdays and Wednesdays we'll cover a broad range of issues. Thursday we'll hear from farmers across the country on the Farmer Rapid Fire. And we'll wrap things up Fridays with the RealAg Issues panel with Kelvin Hepner and Lindsay Smith. Join us Monday through Friday at 4:30 Eastern. And don't forget about the replay at 7 in the morning on Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM. Get all the information you need to keep your pulse crop healthy and profitable with the Pulse School on RealAgriculture.com. The Pulse School is a free YouTube video series covering agronomy, research, and more across a host of different pulse crops. It's also available as an audio podcast wherever you download or stream your favorite podcast. Check us out on YouTube or visit RealAgriculture.com. The Pulse School, brought to you by BSF Canada.
The Canola School on RealAgriculture.com is your one-stop shop for everything a canola grower needs. Check out our free video series on YouTube for all the latest in canola agronomy, research, marketing, and more. Don't have time to watch? Download the podcast version of the Canola School on RealAgriculture.com or anywhere you download your podcasts. Stay on top of all things canola with the Canola School on RealAgriculture.com, brought to you by BASF and Invigor Hybrid Canola.
The following is a paid product spotlight by Genesis Fertilizer. We're joined right now by Terry Drabiuk from Genesis Fertilizer. Hey, Terry, how's it going?
Excellent, Shaun. How are you?
Good. Hey, what do you do at Genesis Fertilizer?
I wear several hats. My title is Vice President of Business Development, but I also sit on the board of directors, and I'm also an exempt market dealing representative. So I'm registered and licensed to sell securities, and I look after a team of people who do the same thing.
Cool. Now, we've been talking about Genesis for a while here on RealAg Radio, but maybe there's some people that are listening to this show that have never heard of Genesis Fertilizer before. What is Genesis Fertilizer?
Yeah, it's an initiative to build a nitrogen plant with farmers. So our target is to get 75% of the plant owned by farmers and 25% from a strategic investor.
Okay. And when is the intended plant, the construction and all that to be completed and be online?
Yeah, so we're out raising money from farmers, and we have a financial advisor that's in place, but we have yet to announce it. It's a top tier international company. The target right now is to hit what they call the final investment decision sometime in late 2025 and shovel in the ground either late 2025 or 2026.
It's a big project, and it's something that I know a lot of farmers are very interested in. And there's, with where we see fertilizer prices at right now and supply and all the challenges, I think there's a lot of farmers looking at this as a very interesting from an operational standpoint for their operations, but also as an investment as well. For a project of this size, you've got to have some real major partners that you're working with to kind of put all this together. Do you want to shed some light on that?
Yeah, we do. We have a lot of people and a lot of corporations that we're dealing with, from support to technologies to construction to, government and peripheral organizations like the railways and most importantly, the farmers themselves. But when it comes to support, the company who is actually raising the money is a company called Access Capital. And Access Capital is an exempt market dealer who's registered in the provinces where we sell securities. So we have to follow securities laws. Osler, who is our legal firm out of Calgary, they specialize in securities, and they've been with us from the start. And we have selected a financial advisor. They're top tier. We're hoping to make that announcement anytime, like possibly even this week. And then, our accounting firm is KPMG that audits our books, and M&P does all of our business modeling. Stantec is our owner's engineers, and they've been with us from the beginning. We went out and signed technology agreements, and we made those announcements already with ThyssenKrupp. ThyssenKrupp has built more ammonia plants than anybody else in the world. In fact, they're the ones who built Sasfrico, which is now Yara at Belle Plaine. doing the urea synthesis is Stammy Carbon, and they're also the ones who did the urea synthesis at Belle Plaine. And then we partnered with a company called Carbon Co. In Carbon Co. with, the green blue ammonia environment, they have a technology that sequesters carbon. So our focus is on a blue ammonia, green urea, low carbon footprint plant, and in fact, one of the first and only one of them in the world. So, and we've signed agreements with our construction firms. We've actually got meetings with them all this week here in Saskatchewan, with the government and with them on site. They're an international, every big name company. We haven't announced yet. And we've also selected our local construction firm, who everybody will know as well. We've had great partnership with the government of Saskatchewan. We've got a series of meetings this week with them again. And that also goes right down to the crowns. The utilities like Sask Power, Sask Water Security, Transgas, Department of Highways, Sask Power, Sask Energy, they've all been really good. They've got, the Saskatchewan government's got a really good, framework on dealing with projects of our size and bringing business to Saskatchewan. So it's been good. And then, there's people like yourselves who, we've partnered with to get the message out. And we've partnered with Rob Sake and his AgVisor Pro platform, and he amplifies some of our message as well. And I guess ultimately, Shaun, we can't do this without farmers. That's really the big one.
Yeah. Terry, if somebody wants more information about the Genesis project, where do they go? They may be interested in, hey, I'd be willing to, or I'm interested in investing some money here. This sounds like something that I should be putting some money to work that's off farm, so to speak, diversifying my investment portfolio, and it has a benefit to my farming operation as well. How do you suggest they do that?
Well, our website's pretty robust. They can go to genesisfertilizers.com, and there's all the contact information is on there. You can contact any one of the board members. You can contact myself, and there's a link to both our phone numbers and our email addresses for everybody who sits on the board and is on senior management.
Great stuff. Hey, Terry, thanks so much for joining us here today for this product spotlight.
Okay, thanks, Shaun. Yeah, have a great day.
As I mentioned, that was a paid-for product spotlight by Genesis Fertilizer. You can find out more by going to genesisfertilizer.com. We've got more coming up here on RealAg on the weekend. We're going to talk to Ian Epp of the Canola Council of Canada. Just because the swather and the combine is in the field, it doesn't mean that we put away our scouting hat. And I've got some news for you. There's some concerns about blackleg out there, and this is the time when you're doing the scouting. We'll be right back on RealAg on the weekend here on 650 CKOM and 980 CJME.
I'm Lindsay Smith from RealAgriculture.com. Join me Monday nights for The Agronomists, a 1-hour live and interactive show broadcast across YouTube, Facebook, and X. Monday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, I host expert agronomists from all over the country to give you answers to some of the toughest agronomic questions. Join us live or catch the replay Tuesday morning. That's The Agronomist with me, Lindsay Smith, Monday nights live at 8 p.m. Eastern.
Hi, I'm Bernard Tobin, host of the Soybean School on RealAgriculture.com. Throughout the year, on the Soybean School, we'll bring you timely agronomic video content from planting to harvest, from the latest agronomic research to the latest in production technology. Check out our massive video library on YouTube, RealAgriculture.com, or download the audio podcast versions wherever you get your podcasts. The Soybean School is brought to you by BASF and Syngenta Canada.
Protect your anhydrous ammonia and bottom line even if temperatures hit 15 degrees or below. That's not too late to apply agronomically effective, non-corrosive Centuro nitrogen stabilizer. Learn more at centuro.ca.
Harvest is an extremely busy time of the year, right? We got people driving the grain cart, you're driving semi, you're driving combine. We got people, supplying meals, trying to keep the whole crew fed. It is Mother Nature either making you be able to go full steam ahead or you're stopped for days or the afternoon. Like, there's a lot happening, okay? one of the things we can't do is we can't put away our scouting hat, especially on canola. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to listen to an interview that we did in one of our Canola School episodes. The Canola School is brought to you by BSF Canada and Invigor Hybrid Canola. And we chatted with Ian Epp at the Canola Council of Canada talking about swathing time. This is when you should be doing some scouting. Here's the conversation.
So what are some of the diseases that you should be scouting for at swathing?
So there's a couple. It used to be the big 3 diseases we talk about canola. Now we have verticillium kind of added into the mix, so the big 4. So the big 4, I'll do it actually as we go through the plant. You pull out your plant and you're scouting. The first plant thing you want to check for is clubroot. Clubroot's going to be below the soil surface. You want to look at the roots and you want to see if there's any galls, any weird tubers, anything going on. So that's the first thing. So anytime you're looking for diseases, first always pull the plant out of the dirt. All right, so that's clubroot. This one doesn't have any clubroot. Then we're going to start cutting, and we're going to cut the stem. I like starting a little lower and starting just slowly cutting a little off the top as you work your way up. And we're looking at the color of the stem in there. If there's any black, we're probably going to see some blackleg. We could also be seeing some verticillium in there. So it's important to be able to try to tell the difference. But again, blackleg and sclerotinia. Verticillium being soil burn usually comes from the roots. So I'd start cutting a little lower. And if it's really low, it's more likely to be verticillium. And start cutting your way up. As we get this pie-shaped black going on as we get a little bit higher up, that could be blackleg. This one has just an inkling of it, but not a whole lot of blackleg. So then we've covered 3 of our diseases. The last one is sclerotinia. Sclerotinia is above ground, so we're looking at the stems, usually the main stem, and then we're going to look here and do we see any sclerotinia lesions, some premature whitening, any lesions? We'll see some deadening or some bleaching happening here if we have sclerotinia, and we can open it up and see those sclerotia bodies with kind of the black sclerotia bodies. So those are the big diseases to be looking for. That's kind of the 4 diseases. So as we're going through the plant, you want to pull a number of plants throughout the field. Swathing timing is a great timing to do it. And, you know, if you are running a swather or spraying, you maybe you're playing spree harvest glyphosate on your canola, that's a great time to be checking different parts. So have your handy dandy clippers with you, and just a number of times in the field, get out and do that assessment on a number of plants and try to figure out what diseases you have. Maybe you don't have any diseases, or which ones, and then from there we can kind of figure out, are they causing us yield loss? It's too late for this year, right? We're at swath timing. It's the yield is set for this year, but this doesn't make different management decisions for next year. We can always learn. You're probably going to be buying canola seed for next year here fairly quick. So if you have no problems, you know, what you're doing is currently working. If you have a big blackleg problem coming up, and blackleg can be pretty sneaky, it's pretty common to find fields with 5 or 10% yield loss, then maybe that's something we want to be considering as we're planning for next year.
Okay, and at what point should you be deciding whether or not you should be sending samples to a lab?
Yeah, so in general, if you find diseases and you're not quite sure, sending samples to a lab is always a good choice. For things like blackleg, you can find out, confirm it is blackleg. The symptoms are can be pretty easy, but sometimes it's sneaky, and sometimes you'll see multiple diseases. So figuring out if it's blackleg. You can also do race testing with blacklegs. You can find out specifically what race of blacklegs in your field, and then knowing that, you can pick a variety that next time you grow canola on that field will be better resistant at the races you have specifically. So you can gain more information than you can from the field. Verticillium, I would always send it to the lab.
Okay.
There's visual symptoms, but because you're never quite sure, it's still a new disease, and you probably see some blackleg with it, sending it to the lab, just confirm it is verticillium. And then sclerotinia you're probably pretty good on. And for clubroot, just confirming that it is clubroot. There are some other things that do cause little bumps or weird things on the roots. The more plants you look at, you'll find all sorts of weird things. Hybridization nodules, these little circles, can look like the beginnings of a little bit of clubroot, but it's not. So if in doubt, sending it away to lab is a cost-effective, it's a cheap way to figure out that it is actually this disease. Especially if you're going to make an important management decision for the next year based on that. It's just making sure is always a good idea.
Right, and I guess speaking of management decisions, like when you're going for a resistance package, do you have any recommendations for how a grower might choose their resistance package? Like what's going to be the most important depending on which diseases you're seeing?
Yeah, so that's the key thing. Doing disease scouting now, you find out what diseases you maybe have, and then you can pick which ones are the most important. When you're picking your canola variety, there's so many different traits you can choose from, right? And not every variety is going to have all of the traits, and some, so I would pick probably, if you have a blackleg problem, let's deal with that. That's a highly manageable one, and like I said, it's easy to lose 5 or 10%. You see a lot of fields that are regularly rating as a number 2 on the blackleg scale, which is 10% yield loss. It's sneaky. You might not see it from the road, but 10% is a massive yield loss. So versus picking the top maybe the top yielding variety, if you have one that for sure takes good control of your blackleg, that might be the most important decision. If you have no blackleg in your field or your stems are clean, whatever your blackleg management program is good, and maybe then it is a different one. Clubroot is a great one to have. Most varieties these days are getting to be clubroot resistant. In Saskatchewan here, I'm not really picky on what kind of clubroot resistance, as long as you have clubroot resistance, and then monitoring again to make sure that the clubroot resistance is working. If you see a resistant variety with galls forming on it, you know you have a problem. But again, just picking the right, the biggest yield limiting factor in your field or on your farm, right? And that changes region to region, it changes farm to farm. Sometimes it changes year to year, but things like blackleg and clubroot have a lot of management decisions that you can do to kind of make a better decision for next year.
Right. And then when it comes to management decisions, so let's say you've scouted your field, you have blackleg and clubroot. How much of a concern is it when you go to a field that's like 2 miles out, right? If you're going to be picking your seed package, should you be considering what you have in one field even though it's a couple miles away?
Yeah, for clubroot, if you have clubroot on one spot on the farm, there's a pretty good chance you might have clubroot on other fields. So for sure, if you see clubroot, you want to be growing clubroot resistant variety. And if you see it breaking down, you might be good to having different clubroot resistant varieties on the farm. In general, just having clubroot resistant varieties on the farm is key. For blackleg, you could see differences from field to field. And right, we're assessing blackleg in this field. This field's not going to be canola next year. It's going to be a field down the road. But if you have a similar cropping history, if you've grown the same types of varieties over and over, the blackleg races that are happening in this field, there's a pretty good chance they'll be the similar races in that field. Not a perfect solution, but it can give you a bit of an insight on what next year might look like. You can also go on, especially on a tighter rotation, if you go to a field that's going to be canola next year, and you can still find residue from the last canola crop, pretty good chance you have higher risk for blackleg, but you can also collect those old samples, those woody samples, and you can take them to the lab, and then you can find out, get race tested and find out, oh, this is exactly the blackleg races that are there from last year, and then you can pick the right variety. So using an adjacent field or a different field on the farm as a proxy can work, or going directly to the source works. Either way, depending on if those old stems are still around.
That's great. And I guess that would come into like record management as well. You want to be keeping records over the years on each field.
Often the fields with the biggest blackleg problems have grown the same variety over and over. Well, all the varieties are resistant, but that resistance erodes over time. So if you're growing a same variety year after year, or one with the same blackleg gene, there's a higher chance you're going to have a big blackleg problem. Okay,
so not only should we be doing crop rotations, but we should also be doing variety rotations.
Yeah, and again, not just variety rotations, but changing the R gene, which if you know what the variety has in R gene, you can then pick a variety with a different R gene, and that will help keep the blackleg at a minimum.
That's great. Well, do you have any words of encouragement for producers as we go into our swathing season?
As we get into winter extension season, quite often I get questions on what variety would I grow, or somebody will say, what variety do you grow on your farm, wanting to know, and that's great. But the key thing is now, if we have more information from this fall on blackleg is this, or I have this sclerotinia, or I have clubroot, or whatever. The more information we can grab now this fall, as we go through the winter decision-making process, we kind of set up the next year's crop. The more information we have, the better decisions we can make. So take the time now. It doesn't take very long. Every, half an hour or something, hop out of the swather, hop out of the sprayer, cut 20 plants, quickly look at them. It takes 5 minutes, and then you have an idea of what to do for next year.
Great stuff there with Amber Bell of RealAgriculture as she chatted with Ian Epp of the Canola Council of Canada. Hey, want to remind you that whether it comes to news and up-to-date information when it comes to something like the rail strike at CPKC and CN Rail, or it's any other ag issue, you can stay on top of it. You can stay on top of it by going to RealAgriculture.com. And like I mentioned, you can sign up for our emails at RealAgriculture.com/subscribe. There always is a ton of stuff happening in the world of agriculture, and you need to stay on top of it. So that's what we do. This is our role. This is what we pledge to do on a daily basis, is make sure that farmers and ranchers across this country, including Saskatchewan, know and understand what some of the issues are and try to break it down. And if we can't provide the insight, we're talking to the people that have the info and be that conduit to you, the farmer and rancher. So we are very passionate about it, and it's great to be able to have a show like this here on the Rolco Radio Network. Indeed. If you have any feedback on today's show, we'd love to hear from you. Send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. You can also call the RealAg feedback line, 855-776-6147. Thanks, everybody, for getting real and getting connected here with RealAg on the weekend, and we'll chat with you again next week. Cheers, everybody.